A few weeks ago, I mentioned to you that the tension between my daughters and I came about as a result of their late father's estate. Yeah?
Right.
I had made the decision to withdraw myself from winding up of the estate. Yeah?
Right.
Last week, when we spoke, you and I noted that the communication channels had now been opened again. My younger daughter came around to my house, having done some grocery shopping for me and preparing a Mother's Day breakfast for the two of us. Very enjoyable, and we refrained from discussing family affairs. My older daughter had sent me a Mother's Day gift and also called me. Good. On Friday last week, I received a call from the person who had been appointed by the regulatory body. My late ex-husband had this financial services brokerage here. And with his passing, there was this woman who was supposed to buy the business from him. And the financial services board, the regulatory body, had appointed somebody the business, yeah? And I still mentioned to you that for me, there was a conflict of interest because he has a similar type of business.
Right.
Be that as it may. So he phoned me and he informed me that my daughter, the older one, had referred him to me, yeah? So clearly they're out of their depth. They don't know how to handle it. And well, not my younger one, but she's actually managing her father's affairs, if you like. And so she...
The oldest one is?
Pardon?
Did you say the oldest one is?
The older one, yeah. Yeah. She's the one who's been managing the affairs of her father, yeah? Or trying, like facilitating or trying to facilitate the process, yeah? Talking to the attorneys and to people at the business, So he informed me that she had referred him to me. She did not inform me that she had done so, which I thought was a bit disrespectful. She should have told me that, Mom, I'm out of my depth, I'm having a problem, so-and-so is going to call you, he would like to have a meeting with you, but, it was no big deal for me, it's fine. So he told me that he wanted, and that was on Friday last week, and I said to him, okay, we'll talk on Monday, being today, and then we can set up something, yeah? So I had to make the decision, did I want to meet with him or did I not want to meet with him, because I'd actually decided to withdraw myself from the process. So anyway, I agreed to a meeting and I saw him today because I thought I don't want them to think that, I was kind of adversarial towards them. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll just hear him out and hear what it is that he wants to chat to me about. So I then had the meeting with him. Well, when he spoke with me on the phone last week, and I've never met this person in my life, he bad person who had been appointed as the executor. And I thought, it's not your place to do that, You could tell me that the person is uncooperative, but he used words like the guy is a little upstart and, and he's uncooperative and, I'm okay with the uncooperative part of it. So this morning, so on Friday, I tried to get hold of the executor, but the executor, though we have given him he wasn't appointed in the will. He was somebody who came kind of down the line, yeah? So we had agreed that he could act as the executor, but he didn't get the authority from the court, from the master as yet. So he doesn't have what we call he can't really act not as the executor as yet. Yeah. So, but he's also, I find him to be, somewhat unprofessional, but that's and I didn't choose him. I just decided they had chosen him. I will just be in agreement with whatever they had decided. I didn't want to add to the issues. And also, there's not much that he can do that can go wrong. It's just that there will be a delay in the process, because the master's office, this is the master of the Supreme Court. Yeah. Because that's the person who has final oversight. Yeah. And the master's office is very good at regulating the process. So, there's not, the person can't really do harm other than this delay and frustration and so I think my internet is Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your voice is kind of coming in and
Are
out.
we okay now again?
No, it's better.
Yeah. Now better? Yeah? Okay. So I tried to get hold of the executor last week. I couldn't, but I managed to get hold of him today. I had a conversation with him, and I agree with what the executor is saying in terms of this other person doesn't understand his position as an attorney in the field, because professionals work to business people. Most businesses, you just kind of operate within a wide and a broad framework, whereas when it comes to professional bodies like the Law Society, for example, there are very strict regulations and codes of conduct and how you operate. And of course, the attorney, who is now the executor, or whom we're waiting for the appointment, he has to work within that code, yeah? And the other person, who is a business person, he doesn't understand that. He just wants to get things done. And it doesn't work like that. So I understand where the executive is coming from, though he's not high on my list of professionals, yeah? Anyway, so I saw this person today, the person who's doing the oversight. And then, he shares some information with me, and basically what they're wanting to do is kind of keep the business going, but basically they want us to do certain things that I don't agree to. So we had a meeting for about an hour, and I sent him away with some homework, if you like. I said, I need to have these gaps filled, and I expect you to come back with certain information for me. I cannot make a decision. And he says, oh, but you can. I said, yeah, I can, but I will not, because right now I can't make an informed decision. So once you have given me the information that I require, then I will be able to make an informed decision. So I haven't, I'm waiting for him to come back. Okay, my crossroads now. I had made a decision that I wasn't going to get involved. However, I am now involved.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm kind of battling with how I'm going to deal with this with my daughters now. Yeah. So I have to kind of mull that over. Asking you to help me through this process, or to advise, because of course I'm the best person to make the decision. But I'm really just saying to you, I'm kind of at this point where I'm at the crossroads with them, and I will have to feed back to them. But I don't want to get sucked into the process. Yeah.
Right.
So you hear what I'm saying. Okay, I have opened the door. I don't want, yeah. Okay, you back with me? Seems like we have a problem again. Yeah, I just don't want to get sucked into the process. So maybe during the course of the evening, I will, in talking through it, or, just listening to some other folks as well, or to yourself, I may come up with a light bulb moment. So, but I'm just putting it out there for now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think, you really need to trust your gut on this. And even though you are the most qualified person to give this advice and stuff, like you said, your fear is to get too involved and to get into trouble, because there's just a mess around there. So you want to keep listening to your intuition and make sure that you set boundaries that protect yourself, because you don't want to get into a problem. Like, this is a financial company, and you mentioned like heavy financial regulations on companies and stuff, which is normal. And if something goes wrong, if they make a big mistake and then somehow point the finger at you, that could be really bad. So you definitely want to protect yourself, and listen to your intuition. Because if you're feeling like it's just not safe for you to get too involved, then listen to your intuition.
Yeah. I thought, well, like the gaps, for example, that I sent this person back with and said, look, there are some gaps and I need this information. So once he comes back with the gaps or fills the gaps, then I will, draft a little report and then send that to my daughters and say, well, this was my fact-finding mission, if you like, and you guys make the decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a healthy decision to make.
Yeah, I don't want it to be my decision to make. It must be their decision to make, and I want to be as neutral as I possibly can. Just put the facts on the table, not steer them in any kind of direction.
Right.
And say, okay, there you are. Run with it. Whichever way you want to go, that's the way I'll go with you. Yeah.
I think that's very wise.
Yeah. It's just so easy to get sucked in,
Yes. And that's the whole problem with narcissists in business, is they will suck you in and they'll flatter you. They'll tell you how great you are at doing this, how you're the only person who can do this. And then you get sucked in, and then you become either a scapegoat, or they just use you, or they launch some kind of smear campaign and false allegations against you. It's just very dangerous to get involved with narcissists in business as well. So I think that sounds like a very healthy decision. Like you said, you're just going to present the facts and then give it to them and then let them do what they want with it. There's no bias either way. It's very neutral. That sounds like a pretty healthy way to handle that situation.
Yeah. I just hope, I'm just reading. If you like, you can go over to the next person now.
Right on. Feel free to type in.
And yeah, thanks very much. I'll be around.
Okay. Can you mute your microphone just so there isn't background information until you want to speak again? Okay.
Mute my.
Your microphone, you should be able to mute it. If not, I can do it for you. Just that way there's no background. If you want to talk again, you can unmute.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so there's a question here in the chat. It says, can you explain about the narc as a child identifying people for certain forms of supply? You mentioned it in a previous video. I'm no contact for the final and last time. Awesome. I'm really glad that you decided to go no contact again. I definitely think that's the healthy way to go in that situation. So the way that I see this, and this idea came from Understanding Narcissists. It's a YouTube channel. It's a young guy. I think he's in Colorado, and he is very, very knowledgeable on the dynamics of how narcissists operate. And he was the one that planted this idea in my mind, and now I can really see it looking back at narcissists that I've known. What he said was that, so a narcissist is kind of like trapped in this infantile state, and the seeking of narcissistic supply is much like when a child is an infant and completely dependent upon the adults, their caregivers, to take care of the child, to feed the child, to change the diapers, to hold the child. And, something really key that they've discovered too about infants is that they need physical touch. Like, their life depends on it. Like, there was an orphanage, I think in the 1200s, they did this really barbaric experiment where half of the kids, they just simply fed and changed their diapers and left alone. And the other half of kids, they held. And every one of the kids who was not held, who did not receive physical touch, they were just fed and changed and whatnot, they died. And that experiment, I think, was repeated maybe in the 17 or 1800s somewhere else in Europe. And what that says is, like, that is just how important physical touch is. Like, an infant understands that they're safe when their parent or caregiver is holding them, is touching them. And if a child didn't get that growing up, if a child had a parent who was either incredibly neglectful because they were narcissistic and they were so focused on themselves that they couldn't be there for the child, or the parent, had this idea of creating this child as an extension of themselves, and then the child lets the parent down because they're not fulfilling, all these dreams that the parent had that the child would be, and the child's upset and crying or whatever, and the parent, so these kinds of dynamics. And say the parent leaves this child alone a lot, or worse yet, abuses this child. Some of those children might grow up to be codependents and develop that survival strategy, but some of those children could grow up to become the narcissist. And so when you see a narcissist as an adult, you can almost see this repetitive thing of when they were an infant. Maybe they don't even tell you what happened to them as a child, but even as an adult, you can see them almost scanning their environment intuitively. Because if you've been involved with a narcissist, you probably realize that they're uncannily intuitive. Like, wow, if they would just put that intuitive psychic gift, to doing something good, that would just be incredible. They have so much power there, but they use their intuition as a form of survival. And it's like they're scanning the room, or they're scanning their area, or they're scanning their awareness of who could possibly, fulfill that need that they have. Either for attention or gratification or whatever it is that they need, now as an adult, but still very much in this infantile state of unconsciously seeking to fulfill those needs. And it's just me, and essentially that's why, you get narcissists who are loyal to themselves and the next hand that feeds them. And that's it. And while that hand is feeding them, they're going to be loyal to that person. But, as soon as that hand stops feeding them, then they're immediately going to transfer their loyalty to someone else and probably destroy the person who had taken care of them before. And so that's what you see as adults. It's sort of like this compulsion to seek narcissistic supply. Is kind of like an infant who is just so hopelessly dependent upon its caregivers to take care of him or her. And if they don't receive that care as an infant, then it's like their emotional life, their psychology gets kind of frozen in this early life state. It's normal for an infant to be narcissistic, meaning, focused on the self. An infant before the age of 2, I think, can't even differentiate the difference between the boundary between the self and other people, but the infant is seeking food. The infant is seeking love. The infant needs these things, touch, for survival, absolutely dependent upon that. And so when you get an adult who's stuck in that state, they're seeking that narcissistic supply from other people, and they're seeking to fulfill those needs. And I heard this other video actually this weekend. I need to look up who this guy was. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he's a psychotherapist, pretty sure he's American. And I think you actually had asked me this question before too, about are narcissists purposefully, consciously doing what they do, or is it sometimes unconscious? And my answer was always, I think sometimes they're just totally unconscious of it. They just don't even realize what they're doing. And it's like this automatic sort of thing where something happens and then this is their response. And what this psychologist said, I think, has forever changed my opinion on the matter. He said that there are defensive behaviors, like defense mechanisms, which is like denial, for example. So when a victim is involved with an abuser, the victim goes into denial. It's a subconscious process. And, you probably know really well, all of us do, once you cut contact and you go no contact, and something happens where like the person sends you a message or a text, or you have a thought, and it's like from one moment to the next, you can be right back in that denial. And then it's like, it's not even a conscious decision. It happens. That's the subconscious. The denial is a defense mechanism. It kicks in for survival. The person often doesn't even have a conscious realization of what's happening until much later. And they're like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, why did I send that email? Why did I respond to that text? Why did I answer the phone? Or however that goes down. And so that's often what happens, is like this automatic defense mechanism. What he said is that these people who are manipulators, the manipulation aspect is not defensive. There's nothing defensive about it. It is offensive. And offensive behavior comes from the conscious mind. Therefore, everything that they're doing to manipulate others is fully conscious. They fully choose consciously to make that decision to get what they want from other people, to hurt other people, to manipulate other people into doing what they want. And that really blew my mind. So that really changed a lot of things for me. So I think like at some level, narcissists are still in this infantile state where they're seeking in their environment to get their needs met. But the way they go about getting those needs met is conscious. It is offensive. It is planned. It is something that they do with the intent of manipulating other people into fulfilling their needs, into doing their bidding, into fulfilling their whims and their expectations. So I need to find that video again. I want to post it on my page. If I find it later today, I'll post it. If not, tomorrow. Yes, I felt he always knew. Yeah, I think I didn't want to believe that for a while. I think I wanted to believe that, the really, really sadistic ones, it was obvious that they knew and they planned and they did it because of the schadenfreude, right? Like they like to see other people suffer. But now that I heard that about the psychology behind it, about how, defense mechanisms are unconscious and manipulation is conscious, now that really cleared this up for me. So I'm no longer going to have that view of maybe they don't know. And now that I'm looking at that, I had a conversation yesterday with someone, or was it 2 days ago? And this is a person in my life who I know is a narcissist. And I heard something that she said, and I was like, wow. And then I realized that wasn't a coincidence. That wasn't just some random thing that happened. Like she intended to say that. She intended to say it right in the moment she did. And it was just like unfreaking believable. And that's just what it is. So now I understand really clear. It's a conscious decision that they're making. After almost a year, he still would not admit his cheating, his porn, etc. Yeah, the covert narcissists are typically the ones that don't admit what they did. Even when and he got worse, I felt, even when you catch them red-handed, like you have actual proof of something, or you saw it with your eyes or whatever, you have actual evidence, the covert narcissist will often still deny it. They'll gaslight you into, some kind of disbelieving yourself, disbelieving the evidence, or somehow turning it back on you and blaming you for something you did in the past that had nothing to do with that. The overt narcissist, sometimes I think that they get off on it. They get off on making you feel humiliated and ashamed. And they sometimes will admit what they do, and then they turn it around on you. Like, well, I only did that because of you. If you were a lot more open-minded to BDSM in bed, then I wouldn't have gone, and slept with those other people. Or if you this, then I wouldn't have done that. So really it's all your fault that I made that decision. Someone says, or they turn it on you, your fault. Yeah. I think that's more the overt kind that does that admits any fault and then likes to turn it around on you. He said, yes, he wanted me to believe his bullshit just because he says so. Yeah, that's the entitlement, right? That's them saying, I'm so important, I'm so special, you should just get over it. I should do what I want, I should get away with it, and you should just believe it. He's covert like a sociopath. Yeah, it sounds like it. And that's that entitlement kicking in. Like, they really do believe they should get away with it. And, like the highest levels, sociopaths who just meticulously, calculatedly plan, the exploitation and destruction of another person. Like, they totally know what they're doing. They totally plan that. And they totally believe that everyone else should just look the other way and deal with it and allow it to happen because they're special and they deserve to do that. And that's really sick. I had a business partner who did that sort of thing. Those are really, really dangerous people to be around. I'm really, really glad that you decided to go no contact and to stay away from him, because you don't get an apology from someone like that. And I think that's the hardest part to walk away is, one, you don't get justice, because whatever he took from you, however you destroyed your life, he's never going to pay you back for that. He's never going to make that right. And he's never going to apologize for it. And I think like that's that thing, that's the hope that every victim and survivor has in breaking no contact. It's the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time he or she really did change. Maybe, just maybe, this time he or she really will apologize. Maybe, just maybe, this time they're actually telling the truth. And it's just so dangerous. It's just so dangerous. So I'm really, really glad that you got away from that. Really, really glad that you're deciding to go no contact. You're not going to get him to admit the truth. That's just the sad reality, is like, the reality, what happened. You saw what happened. You at least saw a part of what happened. And that is enough. That's enough to know that is a bad situation for you. That's not healthy for you. You made a healthy decision to leave that behind. It was a lesson learned, and breaking no contact reinforced. He will never change. And now I move forward. Good. Sometimes we have to have that relapse, where we can't stop thinking about it. Like, we're obsessed with it. Right. And so we relapse and we break the no contact, and then it just goes really bad really fast. And then it's like, oh, wow. It was like an expedited reminder. Like, yeah, I learned the lesson. Nothing better is going to come from that. And the only real way to move forward is to go no contact. Yes, true. Yeah. And I think sometimes we just have to learn that lesson again, like to really, really get it, because I think people keep going back, or they keep, obsessing about it and thinking about it and hoping this person will reach out to them, because they're still trying to understand something, and as long as there's still something left unresolved, as long as there's still that shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, I'm wrong about that person. Maybe, just maybe, if I had worked a little harder, maybe, just maybe, if I had given a little more, maybe, just maybe, that person is really, they've seen the light. They're finally going to change. And then you go back and it's like the same exact situation again. And you realize it's just not going to change anything, and sometimes we have to get to that realization the hard way. I call them the frying pan to the head lessons, because I've gotten those lessons. I went back for a lot of those lessons, and I don't recommend them because like digging back out of the hole is then like even harder. There's a hair in my face, is then even harder, than where you were before. But sometimes like we have to learn that to be done, to finally go, okay, wow, I really want to be done with that now. I don't need to focus on that and obsess about it anymore and wonder, is there a possibility? Because now it's just so clear. I heard somewhere that they release more endorphins than any normal person. You mean in the target? I imagine that can happen. I think that's that initial love bombing and the idealization phase. Oh, in themselves, that's possible. Maybe for them, the endorphins get released when they abuse you, when they hurt you, because they're getting off on that Schadenfreude, right? That German word of like getting pleasure out of other people's suffering. And maybe that's how they get their endorphins, because remember, they have this like void inside themselves and this like gnawing sense of boredom. And that's why they have to create drama. Doesn't matter if it's negative or positive. They have to create these sorts of situations so they can extract that. And maybe, the act of doing that releases endorphins for them and they feel amazing, and it temporarily numbs their pain, their emotional pain, because they're causing other people pain, because they're transferring that pain to other people. So maybe they feel like a momentary release. For sure, they believe that they are these amazing beings. Yeah, they do. That's the entitlement. That's the entitlement. Yeah, it's quite possible that they're releasing those endorphins. I think that exact same thing happens to the target, the victim, in the initial stages during the love bombing, the idealization, because when all this attention, this positive attention is coming at you, it causes this release of endorphins. You feel amazing. It's like endorphins, it's serotonin, it's dopamine, it's oxytocin. Like there's a rush of neurotransmitter brain chemicals. So you get a brain high. And then that's how you get addicted to this relationship, and that's the dangerous thing. And that's how they hook every person at the beginning, is to manufacture the release of these neurotransmitters, hormones, chemicals in the brain. And so, that feels amazing at first. And I think that's also why a lot of survivors, after they get out of these experiences, they start to heal, and they eventually go back out and date again. And what they say is like, I don't know, I don't really feel anything. Like it doesn't feel like it felt with the abusive person. And it's like, yeah, it's not supposed to. Like you got used to that. And if you grew up with that and that's all you've ever known, then you think that that's normal. But that the manufacturing of all those hormones and stuff, that's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. And a normal relationship will take time. It's like you meet this person and maybe there's a spark of chemistry, but it's not going to be this overpowering, overblown intensity that is the initial connection with, one of these narcissistic abusers, like a sociopath, a narcissist, or psychopath. However, they are these insecure little minions thriving on putting others down. Yeah. I used to think that they were all insecure too. And I've read some people are saying just the opposite, that they're actually not insecure. So I'm still on the fence about that. I'm just like I was before when I was like, well, sometimes I think they're doing it on purpose, and sometimes I think they just don't know. It's like an unconscious kind of thing. And then I heard that psychologist speak, and now I get it. Like there's logic behind the fact that they know what they're doing, that manipulation is a conscious effort. The insecurity thing, I'm still on the fence about that. I'm not really sure if they're all so insecure and if they're all so cowardly, because that was my initial understanding. I was like, wow, what a coward. Like, why would he do that and then hide and run away? Like, he must be so insecure that he has to hurt people like this to feel better about himself. But then sometimes I think some of the narcissistic people have so much ego, like so much arrogance, that they don't have the insecurity factor. And so I wonder if it isn't maybe the coverts that are more insecure. They even act like more humble and more withdrawn and self-effacing, whereas the overt type are like very out in your face. Guess there are different types. I know my ex was, yeah, that's definitely possible, and I think that might be one of the differences between the covert and the overt narcissist, is that the covert one might be the more insecure, and the overt narcissist is the one who his ego has no bounds, or hers, no bounds. They're just, flamboyant and out there, and, all attention should be on me and I'm so amazing. Whereas the covert type is much more clandestine. He or she is harder to pick out at first, because they're so pure, so humble, and so self-effacing. Yes, makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. That's just my opinion right now. From my own experiences, from what I've heard from other people, from what I've heard some experts say, and some experts lean towards the insecurity, and some, the fact there is no insecurity. So I think this might be about the different types of people that maybe, because of what happened in childhood or early life experiences, Some of them develop that insecurity, maybe because of whatever life experiences, maybe the kinds of narcissists that are created by the parent who goes, you're so amazing, you're so wonderful, you're so perfect, you can't do anything wrong. Maybe the kind of narcissist that is born from that is the one that's not insecure at all. He has this huge ego and this huge sense of self-importance. Maybe it's the narcissist who grew up with like the abusive, neglectful parent that then feels like this deep sense of insecurity. Hard to tell, but that's just kind of where I'm guessing right now. He was forever putting others down, but I knew that he was insecure about other people's successes and achievements. Yeah, that's the jealousy too. And so maybe the jealousy comes from the insecurity. You know, if he saw other people being successful or reaching achievements, you know, because everything is about them, they immediately turn that on themselves. And if they don't feel secure with who they are and what they've accomplished, and they're going to have this pathological jealousy, and they're going to want to destroy other people's success or achievements or minimize it, you know, at the very best. Yeah, they definitely do that. They put other people down, and sometimes, you know, maybe it's fueled by this insecurity that they have to put other people down to feel higher about themselves. I had a spiritual mentor who would preach, you know, I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt maybe, who said this quote, like, I'm going to butcher this, but it's something about, you know, no one can make you feel insecure. No one can make you feel inferior but yourself, or something like that. Like only you can put yourself in that place. And the spiritual mentor was in Peru and we were working with psychedelic medicines. And he said that the cactus, you know, in one of his visions had told him, you know, like, I am not above or below you. It is only you who puts yourself in this position. And he loved to preach this, you know, and like loved to make you think that it's entirely up to you whether you feel inferior. And there's truth to that. Right. But at the same time, he's abusing people, specific people, you know, he targeted me to put me down. And then he let someone else come into the situation who was abusing me like a bully and tried to put me down. And then he, you know, smiled and then tried to get me to go back for more. And then at the same time, you know, was preaching this spiritual tenet and doing the exact opposite. It's a form of gaslighting. So, you know, they do this sort of thing. But then there are maybe the more overt types who they see other people's successes and achievements and they're like, well, I'm going to do better than that. And they go out and try to show off and prove, you know, that they're superior to other people, because one of the core traits, you know, typically of narcissists, and again, they usually only have to fill like 5 out of 7 characteristics or so. So it's not every single one that every single person has, but one of those traits is that sense of superiority where they feel better than other people. And maybe that sense of superiority is like an overcompensation of the insecurity. Maybe they have such a deep insecurity that they overcompensate with this apparent, you know, display of superiority. So I think it's kind of complex, the different layers that might be going on there. But I do think that insecurity, I have definitely noticed that in a lot of people. I hear some psychologists say the opposite, that they're not insecure at all, but I really feel like I picked up on that insecurity as well. He was jealous of my relationships with other males, and these are my colleagues. Yeah, my ex-husband was jealous of my friendship with gay men. I'm like, what don't you understand? They would rather be with you than with me. We're just friends, you know, but he was so threatened by this. And like you said, they were your colleagues. Like, you obviously weren't doing anything because they were your colleagues and that's not the kind of person that you are. But because of where they're coming from, you know, and the old adage, like, whatever a narcissist is accusing you of, you can pretty much understand that that's what they're doing. You know, so his jealousy of your relationships with men that you worked with was probably because he was flirting with women he worked with, you know, and he was transferring that to you. Absolutely. Yeah. Or maybe much worse, you know, because whatever it is that they invent and project onto you, it's because that's what they're actually dealing with. And, you know, that's the hardest part for a lot of people, is because especially this cheating thing where the narcissist will attack them like the person did nothing wrong. like nothing wrong. They weren't cheating. They didn't have an emotional affair. Like literally there's nothing going on. And the narcissist is just hounding and hounding and how I know you are. I know you're cheating. I know you are. And you're this and you're that. And destroying this person's sense of self. And this person can only defend themselves with the truth. Like nothing's happening. Nothing's going on, and maybe they even compromise their own privacy. And they're like, here, like read my emails, check my phone, whatever. They go to these kinds of lengths to prove themselves that they didn't do anything wrong. And what I want to tell every one of those people, if any of you are listening right now, is it's not about you. Like if someone is accusing you of doing something, if this narcissist is accusing you of doing something, you should probably expect that they're doing that exact thing. And that's just an unfortunate thing. That's what they do. That's just how they deal with what they're doing, is they turn it on you. The victim acts that way too after finding the evidence of cheating. Yeah, that's the thing, so you find evidence that he cheated, he cheated or she cheated in other cases, and you confront them and you're like, I know you're having an affair. Like, I know you're cheating, and they're denying it, which only makes you feel like you're losing your sanity, because you're like, no, I have proof. I know you're doing it. And then they'll go, well, are you having an affair? Why are you so concerned about me? This is really about you. Or maybe they go, yeah, that time several years ago when so-and-so was talking to you, I'm pretty sure you had an affair and you didn't, like nothing happened. But then they're like hounding you about this. And now you're trying so hard to defend yourself that you've lost total sense of the focus of the conversation, which is the fact that they're having an affair and that you have the evidence of it. And that's just how they twist your mind into that sort of thing. So yeah, unfortunately, the victim can often find themselves in that situation too, where they have actual evidence, or maybe they don't. And that's the worst part, where they're cheating, and this happened to me with my covert ex a couple years ago. Like I had like a technicolor vision of him cheating, and I saw this redheaded woman, and I saw it was in like a closet or a dark room, and I knew like it was happening at work. And then I randomly talked to a friend of mine who's very psychic, and out of the blue, I didn't say anything. She goes, so who's he sleeping with? And I was like, exactly. And she's like, red hair? I'm like, exactly. And she's like, and I'm seeing like it's in a dark room. I'm like, exactly. And so I was like, well, that's the proof. Like now I can talk to him about it. And I brought it up to him, and he said it didn't happen. And I had my head on his chest when I even asked him. There was no change in his heartbeat. There was no change in his breathing. Lying for him was like breathing air. It was like the most natural thing to do. And I know he was cheating. Like I'm certain of it. And just the fact that my friend came out with that out of nowhere. But if you try to confront them, then they turn that around on you. Like it's your fault. Or maybe they use stonewalling. Like in his case, first he laughed at it. He humiliated me for even having such a thought, and then gaslighted me. And then once I kept asking about it, he just decided to go. Like it was time for him to go. And there was no more discussion about that. And that's how they handle these situations, where they will either turn it around on you, or they'll stonewall it. They'll just shut it down. They'll walk away. They won't listen to your feelings. They won't look at the evidence you have. They just don't care. They just don't care, because all they care about is that reality. And that reality that they're living in is a total delusion. And, when the narcissist is confronted, like when the delusion that they're living is suddenly confronted with reality, like something happens to them, and it's usually not the victim, finding out that they were cheating and that sort of thing, because that's like nothing. But like maybe they get a DUI, or like something severe happens to them, or they get into like a legal case, like where somebody actually takes them to court because of how much they screwed them over in business or something. And now they actually have to face reality. Like that's the point where that person can go into total rage. The narcissist will go into rage when you call them a narcissist. The narcissist will go into rage when they're suddenly confronting reality, which is in like such dire opposition to the delusions that they're living in. I felt I had to force an apology from him. Then I heard, I'm sorry, but nothing heartfelt. You had to force an apology. So like you pushed and pushed the issue enough, and then he finally said he was sorry, but it was just kind of like a dismissive thing to get you to drop it, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they do say they're sorry. Like there's a lot of narcissists who don't use those words, I'm sorry. But then there are narcissists, who use those words in either they say that they're sorry and then turn it back on you, that it's your fault, or they say that they're sorry and then they turn around and do the same thing again, which means they weren't actually sorry. He said, this feels like an inquisition, as if he were the victim. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Divorcing a narcissist is harder than being married to them, my experience. Yeah. Yeah. Leaving the narcissist. I mean, the divorce is just like a whole other level of paperwork and contracts and like control, because they have to sign the papers or you can't get away. And like, it's a whole other level. But leaving a narcissist, leaving a psychopath, leaving a sociopath, leaving a borderline, it's incredibly difficult. And sometimes it's more painful and difficult than actually being in that relationship, because that's when they have nothing to lose, and they say like the majority of domestic violence murders happen after the victim got out, because at that point the abuser has nothing to lose. Like the person has left, they lost control of that person. And this is just really dangerous, and I always tell people, the only way to leave a narcissist, the only way to leave a psychopath is to sneak away. And you have to play their game. You have to use covert manipulation tactics of lying, deceiving, gaslighting. No, I just donated some clothes to, to the shelter. Meanwhile, like you packed bags and sent them out to your friends, and like little by little, like you're making stuff disappear from the place so that they don't notice. And you somehow, leave the place while they go to work or they're away from the day and they come back and you're gone. Like it is the only safe way to leave the narcissist. Lies and withholding information and evidence required for settling the matter. You're divorced. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that's just that whole other level of there's actual paperwork involved, and that's even harder when there's kids, when there's young kids involved, a whole other level. I hear a lot from a lot of men who are in this situation. And, I think it's difficult enough for a victim to admit that they were being abused or that they were raped or that something like this happened, because society's tendency is to blame the victim. Whether it's a man or woman, society's immediate reflective response is to blame the victim. And there's a famous linguist who did this little thing. I saw it, Jackson Katz's TED Talk. Can't remember, something about the bystander, but it's about abuse. And he quoted this famous linguist who said, this is how society does it. And it's built into our language structure. John beat Mary. Mary was beaten by John. Mary was beaten. Mary is a battered woman. Did you notice that John left the conversation a long time ago? Right? So immediately somebody gets raped and society goes, well, what was she wearing? Well, how much did she drink? Well, where was she? And a child admits that they were sexually abused by a family member. Well, what does a child know about sex anyways? Well, how much can you trust the memory of a child? These sorts of things, this is so destructive to the actual victim in these situations, the way that society blames the victim. You add on top of that the fact that men in society are expected to be, this very masculine presence, and like they're in control and they're, dominating the situation. And when you find that there are actually, part of being a man is also sensitivity and empathy, and that there are men, who are empathic and sensitive. And some of these men can get conned into a relationship with a very toxic woman who they end up having children with. And it's like years down the road that they realize what they've gotten into. And now they're so screwed because they feel like they're trapped, because they don't know, they don't just want to leave and abandon the kids. They want to get the kids out and away from this toxic person, but they don't know how to do it. And the whole societal agenda is set up against the man. Like it's set up to give majority custody to a woman, to give like automatic, custody to the woman, and to look at the man like, and then to expect that the man always supports that. And so then you have this whole mass of narcissistic women who trap men by getting pregnant. And then they have these babies like it's some kind of cash crop or lottery ticket. And now they know that they can forever extract money from this man. They don't have to do anything because they had this child. And it's just really sad. So I hear from these men and they're like, I don't know what to do. Like, there's no domestic shelter for me to go to and take the kids to. If I leave, then they're going to accuse me of abandoning the kids. If I leave, I can at least get myself out of the situation and start to heal and hope that the kids, then by the time we get to custody court, the kids, being like 10 and 14, maybe they can finally make the decision where they want to leave. And maybe they finally are realizing like mom is really destructive. I don't like living with mom. I want to live with dad. That's really the only hope they have. So I think we really need to go about restructuring our societal responses to abuse. Like, first of all, how we approach the victim, whether the victim is a male or female, we absolutely need to stop the victim blaming. And then, to restructure our societal programs to take into account that there are men that get into abusive relationships too. And sometimes the man is a much better person for the children to be with full custody than this very toxic woman. And it almost sounds like heresy to say, because in society we're taught to believe that children should always be with their mother. But sometimes that mother is just so destructive, and unfortunately, like, who gets hurt the most is the kids. So, they're losing their future right to happiness and well-being. They're losing their future contributions to society. And then all of society is losing because this kid, got so abused in childhood that they lost their sense of self. They lost their sense of self-esteem and self-worth. They have this extreme social anxiety, getting out into public, and that holds them back. The PTSD holds them back from discovering their talents and excelling in those talents and contributing something meaningful that could change the world. So I really think this is a bigger problem than society wants to admit. And I really think it's something that we need to take a look at as society to change our ways, because this is an epidemic around the world. And it's not just happening on the interpersonal and familial levels, it's happening on a societal level. And as blind as we are to the interpersonal and familial areas, we're just as blind to what's happening on the whole. And I think that in order for change to happen, we have to really start to restructure the way we approach abuse and the victims of abuse. I noticed he could not stand when I was pointing out everything he put me through. Yeah, because it's basically like calling him out for who he is. And that's what can lead them to the narcissistic rage, because the most important thing to them, and the only thing that they really value is the perception of other people, what other people think about them. And they want to maintain, this character of this really admirable person and this really awesome person, and whatever their shtick is. Cause like everybody has something. Like some people want to pretend to be like this really pure kind of, person who helps everybody else. And other people want to be like, this main business person who excels in business and they're the best at what they do. Like everybody has their thing. But when you point out like what they're actually doing, they don't want to hear that, because they want to keep that quiet, and that's why narcissists abuse the people that are closest to them. They select. He's obsessed with his good name. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And, they want to abuse the people who are nearest to them, and then like protect that from the rest of the world, like not allow the rest of the world to see that. And that's the really unfortunate struggle that every child of a narcissistic parent goes through, is like, doesn't anybody else notice what's happening? And then the child like can't say anything because everybody else is totally smitten with this person, their good name, and, oh, so-and-so? No, because they don't want to see it. Right? Thanks for the chat. I have some clarity about my way forward now. My biggest challenge is not getting sucked in. Good. Yeah. You don't want to get sucked into that. You don't want to have a bigger problem, especially with the business and the financial regulations and stuff. Like, you don't want to end up being the scapegoat for that. You definitely don't want to end up being the scapegoat for that. Yeah, they want to preserve this perfect public persona. And the saddest thing is, like, especially in the case of like a parent, it's more important to them what all the rest of the world thinks of them, some false image, than what their own family experiences with them. Like the people who should matter most, they don't care. They abuse those people, because all they care about is that exterior persona. I hear you. The image all important. Yeah. Yeah, that's why they call it narcissism, right? Because of narcissist who's looking at his image in the reflection. Actually, they enable him. Who's they? His family? Yeah, I think you mentioned his ex-wife is also a narcissist. So, if she's getting something out of him, if she's getting finances and status or narcissistic supply in his father, etc. Yeah. I mean, if they're all narcissists, or if they are such severe codependents that they're so hopelessly dependent upon the narcissist and they enable that, they'll defend that. They won't call it out because they're so dependent on it. And in this situation, it might be both, because you did mention that there's definitely narcissists in that family, including the ex-wife. She's probably getting something out of it, which is probably why she excuses it. But sometimes that can happen with codependents too, where they just don't want to see it. They just don't want to see that. They don't want to face the truth. They too would rather believe in the lie. And I think it was Ross Rosenberg who wrote in his book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, where the couple, the codependent and the narcissist, are united in sort of this mutual deniability. And the denial that the codependent has is more that subconscious denial that kicks in as a self-defense survival mechanism, whereas the denial that the narcissist has is not really denial. It's more like, I'm not doing that. That's not happening. That conscious manipulation of wanting to control the image that everybody else sees of what's happening. Yeah, it's very sad to see enablers, because there's two ways to enable. One is to ignore it and pretend like it's not happening, which is very common among the codependents who just don't want to see it. And the other one is to actually defend it. And sometimes that'll happen too if you try to wake up a victim and let them know what's happening and bring their awareness to the fact that they're being abused. Sometimes what can happen is that victim will defend the abuser and will attack anyone trying to help, anyone trying to bring awareness or help them out of that situation, which is also very unfortunate. No further questions. You're welcome. To the new person who came here, I don't want to say your name out loud because this will be recorded and posted on YouTube later. But if you'd like to ask a question anonymously, you can type it into the chat. Feel free to do that. At least let me know a question is coming, and then I'll wait for you to type that. Or if you prefer to use your voice, you can do that with your headset. Just let me know that you would like to ask a question. That way I don't cut you off. Okay, well, if there's no questions coming in, then I'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar for now, and I will be back here at 6 o'clock Pacific time in a little less than 5 hours to answer more questions. Thank you all for coming. I'm sending you all a big hug, and I will see you guys soon.